Digitalk. And in this session, I'm going to explain you some important considerations with respect to the data source when we configure. Okay, so this is specifically you can say about related with the tuning of the your WebLogic. Okay, so whenever we do the configuration of the data sources, then we define the maximum capacity for the data source. Okay, so that maximum capacity when we increase or decrease, okay, it depends on some parameters that is completely defined at the database level. Okay, for example, if I talk about the Oracle database, there are two parameters that is called process and sessions. So these are the two important parameters that you need to be in consideration when you are going to increase the capacity of your data source maximum capacity. Okay, if that process or the session parameters are not sufficient, okay, then you may get the errors when you will going to start your server or when you are going to increase the capacity, max capacity of your data source. So there is a directly relation between them, and there is a calculation or there is a process for that when we define the maximum capacity and when we define the process or session parameter on the Oracle database, then there is a certain set of calculations how we can define these parameters, which I am going to explain you in this session. Okay, so for that, I'm going to follow this Digitalk lab guide. This is the troubleshooting, tuning, and monitoring lab guide. Okay, and this is, let me go to that section. Okay, so this is part of the Digitalk lab documents, PDF documents of the WebLogic. So we have a 35 lab document. If you need to purchase all this document and write to us on digitalk.fmw@gmail.com, we'll send you the details how you can purchase this along with the other lab documents. Okay, so let me go back again to the section. Okay, so now when we go for the defining of the maximum capacity parameter, so let me first go back to the console and let me show you from here as well. Okay, so what I will do first, I will go to the data sources and let me quickly create a one data source. Okay, and then I will show you. So I will go with the default settings. Okay, and next this is a driver, and then let me give a name for database or CL. This is a local host, is running on my local host. Username, I will go with the system and let me see if I do remember my password. Okay, let me try for that. Okay, and then click next and let me click the test connection. Right, the connection is successful. So what I'm doing, I'm just creating a data source, okay, to show you, okay, all these things what I'm talking about. So now I have this data source is created. Okay, so let me target it to the admin server. Okay, and let me activate the changes. Okay, so now suppose that you have this data source, okay, and inside the data source, when we go for the capacity increment or for the connections capacity, okay, then what we need, okay, this is the option you how you can test your data source connection. Okay, you can go to the monitoring testing and you can test the data source. Now go to the configurations and then connection point. So here, see, I have posted a lot of video on this data sources, how to create, and then even the on tuning as well how what is the meaning of initial capacity, what is the meaning of maximum capacity, minimum capacity, and then how it works. So if you not clear on that, you can search in my channel. Okay, and then you will get a lot of videos of the data sources. So now what I'm talking about specifically in this session is this is the maximum capacity of the data source, which is currently 15. That means if maximum capacity is 15, that means your application at a time can create maximum 15 connections, 15 concurrent connection to the database. For example, if you have a high number of requests in the data in your application is coming, okay, and that your application request is depend on the database sessions. So as of now, what I have done, I have targeted this particular connection pool to only one server, to admin server, right? So in that case, your application can create maximum of 15 connections and the application those are deployed on the admin server. So for demo purpose I have deployed it targeted it to admin server. Otherwise what we do, generally we deploy it on the cluster. So my cluster is as down as of now, so I'm just pointing it on admin server. Okay, so in that case let me go back and show you again. So now because my this uh, data source is targeted to only one admin server, that means only one server. So that means the total number of concurrent sessions that can be created in the database is 15. Okay, if suppose that you are going to target it to the two managed servers. For example, let me go back here. Let me untarget from the admin server and let me target it back to the cluster. So I have two managed servers in the cluster. Okay, so if I am targeting it on cluster, that means I have targeted this particular data source to two managed servers, managed server 1 and managed server 2, which is in cluster 1, right? So now in that case, your application can create total 30 number of concurrent sessions. Why? Because this capacity is for individual target. Okay, so whatever the individual target you give to your data source, this capacity is applicable for that. So now I have targeted it to two managed servers. The total number of sessions that can be created is 30. Similarly, if you go with the four managed servers, then the calculation is simple. You can just multiply it with four. Okay, that means 60 connections. So that means if you have a four managed servers and the maximum capacity of data source is 15, and if you have targeted it to the four managed servers in the cluster, then your applications can create 60 concurrent session to the database. Now, we most of the time when we do the tuning of WebLogic server, we roughly increase this value whenever we hit that resource constant error in the log files that the data source has reached the maximum capacity. We go and just we increase the value. Okay, if it is a 15, then we go with maybe 20, 25, 30, 40, 50. Okay, somewhere you will see this setting around in thousands as well, based on the load in the application. Now, but when you increase this value, this maximum capacity, okay, it completely depends on two parameters in the database, specifically in Oracle, which is the process and the sessions parameter. Okay, so let me go back and show you. So this is the process parameter and session parameter. So let me log into database and let me show you this as well. Okay, so let me log into my database. SQL Plus is sysdba. Okay, so let me check the PDB status. Okay, it is read and write mode. So let me go to my container. Okay, so I'm now inside my container. So okay, so even if we are not in the container, it's a global parameter. So what you can do, you can write the command show parameter process. Okay, so this is the parameter process. The current value is 640. Okay, and similarly, you can check show parameter sessions. And now here you can see the session parameter is 984. Okay, and the process is 640. So now this value seems to be wrong. The combination of the process and this session seems to be wrong. It's not in alignment accordingly. Okay, also what is process and what is the sessions, and how we define the value based on the maximum capacity, or in reverse order, but we can say how we can define the process and session according to our maximum pool capacity requirement. Okay, so process and session. So sessions define the maximum number of database sessions that can be simultaneously connected to the database. This is generally calculated based on number of processes. So what happens is that each session which is getting connected with the database need a session value from the session parameter. So this defines the maximum number of database sessions that can be simultaneously. That means at the same time can be connected to the database. But this is generally calculated based on the number of process parameter. And now what is process parameter? Defines the maximum number of operating system user process that can simultaneously connect to the Oracle. So that means whenever a session is getting connected with the Oracle database, it need a session. Okay, and it will take one value from the sessions parameter. Okay, and then there would be a corresponding operating system process will be generated in the Oracle database machine. Okay, so that process. So now the process parameter is, that means the total number of sessions that is getting connected from the application side to a database. It is defined by the session, but along with these session processes at the OS level, you will have a database system is running in place, and that database also run a lot of background processes. Okay, so that means along with the session value in the process, you will have the processes that is belong to the sessions along with some of the database related background processes, right? So that means your process parameter has to be more than your session parameter, because process include your some Oracle database parameters processes as well, right? So that means if my session parameter is 10, then process parameter should be more than that. Now what is that value? Okay, so let me show you that calculations as well, how we do the calculation. So now let me first show you how we do the calculation for the connection pool. So I just explained this, and let me show you again. So suppose that you have a data source with the maximum capacity of 500. Okay, that means your application can create 500 multiple simultaneous connection at a time. Okay, now suppose that you have the managed servers of 5. Total managed servers we have a 5, right? Then how many connections, that concurrent connections that your application can create? It is 2500 sessions. That means 500 into 5, because 500 is the maximum capacity of the connection pool that we have defined, and the total number of managed servers, or you can say the total number of target where we have targeted this particular data source is 5. So that means your application can create the 2500 number of sessions concurrently. So now one thing is very clear from this particular value. Our session parameter has to be more than this one, right? Because if I am allowing my application to create the 2500 simultaneous sessions, then I need this parameter to be in alignment with this particular parameter. So what is the calculation? So if I am expecting 2500 sessions to be there at a peak time, okay, so generally what we do, we take some buffer, we add some buffer in this particular value of 10 to 20%, and then we define the session parameter. For example, if I'm saying that 2500 is the session I'm expecting, then you can take the 10 to 20% of 2500, okay, and add this value, and whatever the value that we are getting after adding the 10 to 20%, that you can define for the sessions parameter. Okay, so this is how you can define the sessions value based on your maximum capacity. Okay, so whenever you are going to increase the capacity of your connection pool, you have to make sure your session parameter is in alignment with the value that you are going to increase. You can't increase the value maximum capacity blindly. For example, here the connection capacity is 500. And if tomorrow you are going to increase this value from 500 to 1000, that means 1000 into 5. If you have 5 managed servers, then you are going to create 5000 number of connections. And if in the backend, in the database side, you have the value 3000, then there is no use of this parameter, right? Because your database will not allow to create this number of connections. Okay, and in that situation your database may get certain kind of a problem, and your application will also get a lot of problems, because the connections will get in the keep in the waiting status, because your database will not able to create the sessions because the value is less, right? Now this is how we define the maximum capacity for the sessions and the connection pool. And now if come to process, so what I said in the process, for each and every session that is getting established by the application at the database level, there is a corresponding operating system process is generated, right? And on top of that, you will have certain Oracle background processes as well in place. So that means 3000 I am allowing for the sessions by adding the buffer to this value. Along with that, the calculation for process, it has to be more than this value, because we have some database process as well, background process as well. So the calculation for this is, you can multiply the value of your session parameter with 1.2, okay, or maybe sometime if you have a Oracle 12c or more higher than that, 90 19c 21 23 AI, okay, so what you can do, you can multiply your session parameter value with 1.2 and add some more value on that, like 22, as a standard practice. So if my, if I talk about now in company sequence, if my data source capacity is, total concurrent capacity is 2500, where 500 is the maximum capacity of connection pool, and I have 5 managed servers. In that case, by adding the 10 to 20 buffer on this maximum value, my session parameter value will be 3000, and my process parameter value should be session into 1.2 plus 22. This is 3622, right? So that means my session parameter is 500 more than my maximum capacity of the data sources, and my process parameter is around 600 more than my session. So that means I am giving some extra buffer to create the Oracle background process as well, right? So this is the way how we do the calculation of the parameters. And now let me show you why I was telling this is wrong. So here my session parameter is 984. However, in the database process parameter is 640, which is wrong, right? Because if session is 984, then what is the calculation for this process parameter? This is 984 multiplied by 1.2 and plus at least 22. So whatever the value that will come here, it has to be here. That's why this process value is wrong. So if you have not considered all these considerations when you are doing the configuration of your maximum capacity, and if you are not aware about what is the session and process parameter value in the background, then you may encounter a lot of issues. And whenever you are going for the tuning of your data source connection pool, then make sure to take all these in consideration. Thank you.